And what he says is what really matters is not being youthful, but being useful. Isn't that
That's a
lovely?
good one. That's
That's
another
great.
great one.
So jot
I
that
love
down,
that.
everybody. I'm not going to worry so much about trying to be youthful. I'm going to worry or concentrate, focus on being useful. And that again is what I think the harvest time can be, is I'm going to be my most useful, make contributions, not with a lot of pressure like my career might have been, but I have the opportunity to decide, how do I want to give back and make a contribution? Ask yourself, what are the things I want to be able to do when I'm 90? Think about it. You're probably going to be here when you're 90. What are the things that you really would like to still be able to
Mhm.
do? And then recognize that if those things require some physical strength and agility, then you need to start training for that now.
Wow.
I'll give you an example. I want to be able to get on an airplane, go to Europe, and walk around and see beautiful things when I'm 90.
Me too.
That is definitely something I want to be able to do. Well, you know what that means? That means I have to have strength, I have to have mobility, I have to have stamina, I have to be able to walk around and do things. And like, okay, so I need to keep moving my body and keep it strong because I don't want to fall down, break something, and then have that sad decline, right?
Right.
I want to, if I keep my body strong and active, I'm not a good candidate for falling down and breaking something. Hey everybody, it's Tim Hinton, the Beast of the Marching Arts. And while we're having this conversation, I hope you'll call me Beast. And Mary White is here. Dr. Mary White, how are you?
I'm doing good. I hope you'll call me Mary.
I will call you Mary, and thank you so much for that. And listen, everybody, this is the second conversation we're having here live about learning to love midlife, right? Loving your midlife time. We're using as some of our sort of organizing principles, Chip Conley's book called Learning to Love Midlife. I found it very helpful, and I have a lot of notes about tonight's conversation. Now, last week we talked about overcoming those stereotypes about getting older, because midlife now can be anything from 35 to 75 or on. So there's this
Right.
huge chunk of time that is now this productive quality time. Mary, I think everybody used to think, okay, you retire from your job and it's just a big downhill slog.
Yeah, and you just sit around all day or do crossword puzzles or whatever you do.
It's just a sad decline on every front, right? And the point we want to make everybody is it's not a sad decline on every front. It should be a way to continue growing on every front. So think of getting older as continuing to grow. And Mary, the other premise I really loved was that all of the experiences and knowledge and wisdom that you've gained through your whole life, now you can resynthesize it and use it and make more contributions to the world and live a really happy, thriving life because of all that you've learned.
Right. I think you had a metaphor. And was it the harvest?
Yes, rather than thinking of it as a time of winter, which is what everybody thinks. It's
Yeah.
winter and it's the decline and it's sad and it's dreary and it's just no, it's a time of harvest. I love that. You take
Love it.
all of those things that you've learned and all that you've invested in yourself and in the world, and you harvest it and use it to create and whatever you want in your life. And many people, Mary, make their biggest contribution to the world and make really important contributions during this midlife time.
And I think that's been proven time immemorial, with very historic figures. The one I'm thinking of is Albert Einstein or, things like that, where the time of harvest really was later in life.
Absolutely. So that was the premise of the first week, and you can find that recording, everybody, on YouTube at the Call Me Beast YouTube channel. But now today we're going to talk about all the different sections, the physical, the emotional, all those things. And today we're talking about the physical part, your physical life in midlife. And Mary, this is something that really resonated with me because I have been a very physical person. I've paid a lot of attention to my fitness and being healthy and all of that stuff. Spent a lot of time in the gym. And so I'm very aware of the physical life for me. And so this was the part of all this that really resonated the most. And I loved the
Hmm.
way that the author of the book that we're using as our guide sort of framed this. So we're going to talk about that. The first concept I want to say about the physical life in midlife is that, first off, think about longevity. Again, this was something we already talked about, but you have a lot more life left when you hit midlife than you think, or than society wants you to think, right? In
Right.
fact, really your story is only about half told, right? Like this, I think this is really great. Like the midlife, your story's only half told because if you think about that harvest we just talked about, you have a long time learning and figuring it all out. Then I feel like maybe when you get to your 40s, 50s,
Right.
you've sort of figured it out and you're really making your career happen. But now you're going to take all of that and do this next part.
Which could be an incredible harvest given your circumstances or whatever you have going on. I mean, I think that you think it's that downhill slog as we've talked about, but it's really not. There's a great opportunity and a lot of time.
Right. And let's reframe it.
We
One of
hope.
the things, one of the concepts they talk about is reframe it from a 3 act play to a 4 act play. Right.
What?
Yeah. So rather than have the growing up part and then the career part and then the downhill slog part where you get old and you're grumpy and die, right? Now it's like growing part, career life part, midlife part, and then your older age part, right? So let's make it a 4 act play when we think
Huh.
about the arc of our life. And longevity can be more about quality than quantity. This is the other sort of key concept I want to lay out here at the beginning is if you realize one day that you don't have, maybe there's more life that's already passed by than you have ahead of you, then thinking that the length of your life is the most important thing, you kind of have to reframe that and think about, well, what about the quality of
Yeah.
each moment of my life, the quality of each year? I know you like that concept.
I love this quality over quantity because, people talk about, making living every day, in its fullest and really putting that quality over that quantity. It's always more important for sure. I'm just trying to think of some other things we've talked about through the years, Tim, about really making moments that make meaning and that last in your life. And those memories can really help with the quality of your life rather than time.
Yeah, even like it's not necessarily how much money you have in the bank, but what are you doing with that money? Or how does that money bringing you joy? Are you
Right.
creating experiences in a life that you love? There are a lot of very rich, very unhappy people, right? I'd like to
Right.
have that
I don't
problem
know
to figure.
many.
Do what?
I don't know many.
Oh, I don't know.
Don't,
I think they're on the news all over everywhere you look. Okay, but we're
I
not going
didn't
to talk about
personally
the
know.
news. Right. Well, but anyway, so quality over quantity. Now, next concept. You're not finished, you're just going to keep growing. This is something we've talked about many, many times, the growth mindset. Don't think that I'm at the end of my career and I'm done. No, this is the time where you synthesize, you harvest, and you continue to grow.
And I think while your brain is more active in your youth, obviously, people can learn languages early on. And as you get older, that become your brain becomes less elastic and things like that. But I still think that growing part is always going to be active and it can be active should you make it active. You've
I
got
like
to.
that. So before we get into the specifics about the body, there's one more concept that was in the book that I really liked. It was talking about how when you get to this moment, when you realize, okay, maybe you're making that transition out of your career, or you're realizing I'm in my midlife time and I need to start dealing with that. The transition can be really hard, right? Because think about it, you're letting go of a lot of stuff at this time, typically, like the thing that has defined you, your career, or how you thought about yourself. So you have to go through the process of letting that go, you're redefining yourself, and you're often starting something new, which is awesome. I love when people at
And
midlife
exciting.
take that, start something new. I know this is resonating with you. Start
Yeah.
something new, and starting something new is scary. It's a risk. So we have to give ourselves, my point here is give yourself a break if you realize I'm in midlife and I'm feeling a little bit unsettled. I'm supposed to be self-actualized human. And I'm very, well, listen, everybody, you're going through this big transition, leaving things behind, letting things go, starting new things, taking chances. You know, Mary, you just did this.
I did it. I retired after 36 years in a school district. And really, I will be honest with everyone, Tim, and you included, and I think you know this, my work defined who I was. I worked very hard, very long hours, and really it became like total another extension, a limb, if you will, of what I am. And then when I didn't have that, what in the world was I going to do? Was I going to get
Right.
another job? Was I going to, I had a terminal degree, Tim. I have a PhD. Did I want to go back to school? You could do more. I mean, I could get another job, and I did get another job. I, I'm not going to necessarily consider it a career. I consider it like a different branch of what I've done in education in terms of still helping a grander picture, a bigger picture of helping children, but also I'm learning so much. I've never worked in a nonprofit. I've never worked in a for-profit corporation before. Never. I've always been in the public sector. So today they brought a Starbucks. I was like, oh, that would have never happened. I was so excited. I know it sounds so crazy, but there's like something new every single day that I learn about working in a different sector of the economy. So I'm just saying I'm enjoying the learning for sure.
Right. But you're always a lifelong learner. And that's one of the things that I know about you, Mary, is that you love to learn. And I'm glad that you're not, and I knew that you never would stop learning and continuing to grow your whole life. But the thing I want to make sure and remind you and everybody else is it's okay to give yourself some time to figure things out. Like the
I
author
was
said,
very, I was really nervous about the transition. I think you remember that, Tim. Like
right,
really nervous because I was working 13 hours a day for many days, for years, forever. It felt like really giving my 150%. So I was worried about how do we go from that to nothing. And I was thinking about that the wrong way. I wasn't going from that to nothing. I was going from that to new.
right. But see, that's the thing. That's the reason we're having this conversation because our society tells you that when everything stops, you're going to sit in a chair and watch the Price is Right all day, whatever. And no, the point is you're starting something new. So we're reframing it, everybody. That's why we're having this conversation. And Mary, I also, the other point I want to make here is I think you're still figuring out
Oh,
where am I going? What am I going to do next? How am I going to synthesize and harvest all this stuff? And what contribution am I going to make? And the author makes the point that it's okay to know that that
right.
transition and figuring that out is going to take some time. You don't have to know today.
Yeah. And that is the other realization I came to. I think you knew after I retired, I spent a month in Europe. Um, I, that was really important for me to fill those days. We had a wonderful time. I approached and ended the trip on a seminal birthday. Um, and on the 23rd of June, right before we saw Elton John in Paris. But I I during that whole trip, it was somewhat, I don't want to use the word cathartic. But I had an opportunity to slow down and say, wait a minute, there's so much coming ahead for me, and it's going to be a process, and it's going to take some time, and it's okay. Because I have a great husband by my side, I have great friends that are with me, and this is not on me. I don't have to carry the world as I go through this.
Right. And it's okay. First off, I think it's wonderful that you marked that in a big way and gave yourself a celebration and created that transition into the new thing. And now my point is you're doing this new job, you're enjoying this new sort of slower way of living. And I think it could be that give yourself time to synthesize and decide. And you might find yourself in 2 years, oh, I want to write that book, or oh, I want to go over here and do this thing or contribute in a way I never even thought of. So just know
Mhm.
that that's part of the process. I'm saying this for myself, everybody, because I'm that guy that always wants to know exactly
You're
what's
preaching to
happening.
the choir.
I am a planner and I am preaching to myself. So I'm just reminding myself it's okay to not know. I'm in a transition right now. In what my husband and I have been doing the last couple of years, we're going to start doing something different. And I really wish I knew exactly what was going to happen, but I am letting myself move through it. Okay, now let's get into the nuts and bolts of the physical life and how we relate to our body. Is someone said, I'm relieved that my body no longer defines me, right? They learned to let the body, what they look like and how people reacted to their body and how they reacted to their body and interacted with their body. They decided that was not like the bottom line. In fact, he says in here, I'm going to jump ahead to one of his other quotes. He says, you realize at this point that the field of life has moved from the body to the heart and soul. I
Whoa.
I love this idea that rather than being a physical being, you realize that now at this time in my life, I am going to expand and I'm going to start being centered in my heart and soul
Medical
rather than in
physical
my
being.
body. Isn't that powerful?
It really is because you spent your whole life amassing and gathering these experiences and to give back in some way. I mean, and that's a little bit Pollyanna of me, but um, I believe in that, that you have that opportunity for sure. But also, we're always worried about well, I know I'm always worried about what people are thinking
Well,
of
so
me
let's
or
talk about that. Let's talk about that. Okay. Okay. One of the things that he points out in the book is that aging, which is what we're really dealing with here, right? Our body is aging. We're relating to our body differently. The world reacts to our body. We age in public. I mean, really, everybody can see what's going on with our aging, right? And he
right,
talks a lot about the anti-aging industrial complex, obsessed with keeping us youthful. I mean, really, there is this whole cottage industry. How many products are they about keeping you looking young and trying to be youthful and act youthful and dress youthfully? And
Botox and fillers and all the cosmetic industry too.
right. So this what he wants us to realize, I think, is realize everybody that there's this sort of setup going on, right? Like our culture is constantly telling us that you have to stay youthful, and if you grow old and look older, that that's a terrible thing, and it means all these things we've already discussed, right? So just know that
Right.
that's part of it.
Like Demi Moore said, and I said it in the last episode too, put away the measuring stick.
Right. So this is what we're talking about today. And what he says is what really matters is not being youthful, but being useful. Isn't that
That's a
lovely?
good one. That's
That's
another
great.
great one.
So jot
I
that
love
down,
that.
everybody. I'm not going to worry so much about trying to be youthful. I'm going to worry or concentrate, focus on being useful. And that again is what I think the harvest time can be. Is I'm going to be my most useful, make contributions, not with a lot of pressure like my career might have been, but I have the opportunity to decide how do I want to give back and make a contribution. Okay, older
And
women
can I
as
just
we,
add one thing to
of
that, Tim? I
course,
don't think it has to be these gigantic contributions.
no. I think it could be a life well lived. There's a
Correct.
joyful, productive, happy older person. That's a contribution,
Yes. And kind to people.
right? All those things. So we know the setup for older people, right? Older women, we talked about already, can tend to be invisible, right? I actually think that's really interesting. I've talked about my experiences talking to older women here at the bed and breakfast and how they're astounded if I'm giving them my attention. And society treats men and women differently in terms of aging, especially around the physical. And I think that we all understand that women sort of men become dignified as they get older and women just it's not acceptable. So we know that women have that setup, but don't think that men are off the hook, right? Because men have a lot of pressure put on them to have to look a certain way, and our
Yeah.
male bodies start to change and they don't do what they used to do, and you accumulate weight in places you didn't used to have it, and you can't move as well. And so it's sort of a setup for all of us, right?
Oh, for sure. And hair. I mean, this is for men and women. Your hair changes. I mean, it's, yeah.
So know that that's all part of it, right? And be aware of all those things. He talks about the outdated paradigms about aging that I don't necessarily want to get into the weeds about that. But his point is, he says it's not just one long rot to the end, which is, I think, what everybody thinks is you start to get old, you just sort of
Right.
rot away.
Oh, damn it.
That's not acceptable. This is not the way I want to think about it. Okay, so we talked about the heart moving from the physical to the heart and the soul. And then he makes another point that I know I'm a little bit all over the place, but I sort of pulled little highlights from things he said that I thought were interesting. He talks about, and listen, this is what really, this talk to me, okay? I will be honest, like trying to keep the same level of fitness and physicality and strength and the way your body looks like I'm still really fighting that fight, but I have been able to make the transition from something that I have to have to something that I want to be
Sure.
walking around in this sort of physical structure. So this is a change for me. But he talks about being aware of if you are one of those people that's still trying to hang on to that exact same level of what you look like, how your body looks, the way you present yourself to the world, realize how much that costs. And I'm not talking about
As
only money, but I'm talking about
no,
the time, the impact on your relationships, the impact on your daily enjoyment of your life.
mhm.
And we're not saying give up and sit around and eat ice cream and let your body go to, but we're saying maybe don't be quite so obsessive because that has a cost to it, especially at this point.
Wow. So what could that look like in real life, Tim? Like, I'm just being honest with you because I know you are very, I mean, you have been a coach, a physical coach. I mean,
Yeah.
you've done so much work in that area.
Right. So, well, the first thing I had to do was what we've already talked about. I had to come to terms with the fact that I was in a new era of my physicality, and I couldn't expect to have the same amount of muscle on my body, and I couldn't expect to have the same, be able to lift the same amount of weights in the gym, right? I mean, it's possible to still stay very fit, still be very healthy, still have a very impressive physique and all those things, but you have to sort of realize what's appropriate to this time, what my body allows me to do, and how much time and effort am I willing to put into it?
Put
There comes a
into it.
point when you're like, do I really never want to be able to have dessert? Just because I want to have a. So you have to find that balance and reframe it. And that's my point is figure out how to reframe it for you in the way that works for you using the right concepts.
But I think that's really hard. I mean, that's really hard, you
Right.
know, and really
This is
it's that
tricky.
it's that balance. Like, Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better. You know, I, I think, is that a daily struggle that you're worried about these things? I mean, it's just a process, really,
I
right?
think it's an ongoing process. For me, it's different every day. But
Yeah.
I feel like I'm having to come to terms with some big picture things. I just can't do as much in my 60s as I did in my 30s. And, but there's also a part of me that goes, well, I don't really want to anymore. Like,
Do I really want to do
this
that?
is where you sort of say, like, well, what really, I like this, what really brings me joy? Like I love going to the gym. I love lifting. I love the way I feel. I love the way it helps me look. I love the way it makes my body work. But I can't do it at the same obsessed level that I used to. And I'm
Intensity,
coming to terms.
yeah, intensity, what's energy, all of those things. But you're still in a process of doing it. You're still
Right.
liking.
It's an ongoing thing. So yes, Steve and I try to eat healthy and we try to make good choices when we're
Right.
setting like planning dinner. And we that doesn't mean though that I don't ever have a piece of cake if I bake it to have here at the house because I still want to
Tim,
enjoy
you
my
bake.
life. But if you are being active and moving, which is going to be the
Yeah.
bottom line of this whole thing is to keep moving, right? We're
Yeah.
going to get to that point at the end of this conversation. If you are keeping moving and staying active in whatever way that works for you that you enjoy, you've got to keep moving.
I love to swim.
Right. That's a great example. This has become your thing that really keeps you active, keeps your body moving. Swimming is great non-impact exercise.
Right. And just because, so many years of dance and color guard and all this stuff have really taken a toll on my knees. I am not ready for a knee replacement. I don't want to. So I I can do that because it's low impact and that it's become very, very important. And in this cold weather we've had recently in Florida, I've been disgruntled.
But the point is, you
Trust me.
adapted. See, you adapted. You found something that you enjoyed that kept your body active and healthy and moving. And I really honor you for that, Mary. And you also all that discipline that you learned through your career, through
Mhm.
marching band, through color guard. That discipline is paying off for you now as you
Right.
get out there, even on a cold morning, and say, "I'm going to do this because I want to do this for my health."
Well, I haven't done it when it was 40 degrees here, Tim. I must be honest with you. But like you said, that's a balance. I cannot do 40-degree cold weather when the pool might be 60 or 55. Can't do it.
And that is perfectly okay because we're talking about the whole premise here is doing it all with sanity and knowledge and wisdom and experience. And
Right.
that's the thing, everybody. We're talking about harvesting all that wisdom and experience and things you've done and what you've learned. And here you are. I don't need to be out there trying to swim when it's damn 40 degrees, right? Like I can, there are other things I can do, or maybe one day off won't kill me. It's the big arc, everybody. It's the big arc. If you stop moving and you never go out and swim, then it starts to take its toll and you're not able to do what you want to do.
My brother, I think I spoke about him last time. He's my oldest brother. He's going to be 70 next year. And he said, motion is lotion, rest is rust. That's his expression
Yeah.
for,
The bottom line of all this, everybody, is staying healthy requires you to move your body. You
yeah,
have to move, and you can figure out what that is. That can be a walk around the block. It can be bicycling. It can be playing tennis, golf, swimming, in the gym, yoga, martial arts, Zumba, etc. I mean, keep going, right? It doesn't matter, but the point is to move. And I have to tell you, Mary, I have, in my experience, many stories of lovely people that I knew that I really liked that retired and stopped moving.
I,
And
I feel like I'm moving more than ever before.
I know, and that's because you're smart and you're harvesting all of your smarts and experiences. But my point is just to say this, I know people whose parents just started sitting in the chair watching TV. They would get up to get the next bowl of ice cream. They would not. And then, of course, once you stop moving, then it starts to hurt more when you do try to move. And you just get
Sure.
into this downward spiral that is so difficult for people to get out of. But my point is, these folks that I knew that were lovely people, many of them left this plane of experience at an earlier age than any of us would have wanted
Wow.
because they simply stopped moving.
Wow. I can't even consider that. Like sometimes if it's hot out, like I'll say to my husband, let's just walk around TJ Maxx for 20 minutes, just
Exactly.
walk the aisles just to,
Go to the mall if there are such
yeah,
things still, and like just wander around. But the point is to not figure it out for you. You know, Mary, there are all kinds of people in Orlando that like there are a whole set of retired people that walk around Epcot each night.
silver sneakers.
Yeah, they love it. They like
Yeah,
being there, and it's like a mile. Plus, it's over a mile. So they're getting their steps in a place they enjoy. But the
right.
point is, everybody, there's tons of ways to do it, but you have to keep moving. And
I like it, Tim.
I have one final thing. I want to back up again in a minute, but there's one final concept that I just love that I was going to end with, but I'm going to say it now anyway. Here's the question. If you're thinking, I don't know if I want to keep moving, by the way, Mary, I was going to say this a minute ago. You have never been someone that wasn't moving, right? Like you have
No,
always been on the go. You've always been active. That's a gift you got from your parents and your family, for one, and from being in marching band and color guard and all that. You've never been one to sit around. You love being active. You love using your body. I love watching you at a clinic, going out there in front of a bunch of color guard girls and whipping them into shape and exciting them and making them inspired. And this is exciting. So it's fun to use your body. I love using my body. I love moving. I love doing martial arts now. I love doing gym stuff. I like to keep moving. That doesn't mean there aren't days when I need to rest.
yes.
But the point is find something that keeps you moving. Here's the thing I wanted to say, that the main concept of the whole thing, everybody, here it comes. Here it is. Ask yourself, what are the things I want to be able to do when I'm 90? Think about it. You're probably going to be here when you're 90. What are the things that you really would like to still be able
Mhm.
to do? And then recognize that if those things require some physical strength and agility, then you need to start training for that now.
Wow.
I'll give you an example. I want to be able to get on an airplane, go to Europe, and walk around and see beautiful things when I'm 90.
Me too.
That is definitely something I want to be able to do. Well, you know what that means? That means I have to have strength, I have to have mobility, I have to have stamina, I have to be able to walk around and do things. And like, okay, so I need to keep moving my body and keep it strong because I don't want to fall down, break something, and then have that sad decline, right?
Right.
If I keep my body strong and active, I'm not a good candidate for falling down and breaking something, right? I know that things happen to people that are out of their control that cause physical disabilities and difficulties. But my point is, when I'm 90, I want to be able to read my Charles Dickens books when I'm 90. So I'm not going to let that mental process of staying alert and reading and staying on top of things, I'm going to keep
Yeah.
that going.
Right. The reading to me is really important. I have a 3 day, no, excuse me, a almost 4 year long streak of the daily New York Times crossword puzzle.
Good for you. That's
Yeah,
great.
it's Yeah,
And
sometimes it
that
requires
is,
a
it
little
keeps your,
scaffolding, but
but it keeps your brain active, and
yeah.
you're using your knowledge. And this is it, everybody. It's a great example. And but my I love this idea of what do I want to continue to be able to do. I knew a woman when I was doing martial. I'm still taking martial arts classes, but I was doing in-person classes a while back, and there was this one lovely woman. She was probably late 60s, maybe early 70s. She was in a terrible car accident, and
Wow.
she literally could not walk. And they were not even sure if she was ever going to be able to walk again. And the thing that she was most upset about was that she loved to travel, and she had a group of friends, and they were always flying off to somewhere in Europe or South America or whatever. And that was the thing that was most devastating to her about it.
Wow.
Well, I'll tell you what she did. She came to the Martial Arts Center for Health, and they helped her learn to rewalk.
Wow.
And within, I think, 3 or 4 months, she was on a plane going
That's
on a trip
awesome. Right.
because
She had a real goal, though.
she had a real goal, she had real motivation, and she had a history of being active and physically fit because she was in martial arts classes all those years before the accident. And so, a lot of people who are athletic, who have really used their body and built their body, they do very well after unfortunate accidents because they have physical strength. So there's lots of reasons to decide to keep moving, to stay strong, do some strength training, stay involved, do your swimming, whatever you're going to do.
Right.
But I love this concept of, well, what do I want to be able to do when I'm 90? There's lots of things on my list of things I want to be doing when I'm 90 years old.
Yeah, I love that thought, Tim. It's really forward thinking too, and also process oriented. It's not so product oriented. Oh, I can't lift what I used to lift. Wait, I'm in a process.
Right.
Love
And
it.
this is the way I have reframed my physical being because I was very much I was into bodybuilding. I want to be strong. I want to look a certain way. I love how I feel in that body, the whole thing. And as I got older, I realized, okay, I can't maintain that at the same level. And it became more about being able to think about moving through the world with ease and grace. This is the way I think about it now, rather than how am I going to look when I walk in the room and what are people going to think and what are they going to think of me, or even how do I feel about myself? But it's more about how am I moving through the world? Can I go to that band rehearsal and be active and go out there and help those kids?
And
Can I
useful. Can
go
you
on a
go from
trip?
youthful to useful?
Exactly. So I've reframed it, and this is what I'm really working on. And some days I have to catch myself, and I'm like, "Oh man, I wish I could have benched what I benched." And I'm like, "Wait a minute." My premise now is what do I want to keep being able to do? And I want to be able to move through the world, not only with grace and ability and without pain, but I also want to be able, wait, I lost my train of
I'm
thought.
sorry.
No, it wasn't you. Not only do I want to be able to move through it with grace, but I want to be able to move through it without fear. This is
Well,
part
I
of what
was
I
going to,
learned in martial arts. If I know that I have been doing the training, then I know that I'm not likely to really hurt myself if I slip and fall.
Mhm. Tim, I also wanted to talk about that level of confidence too, that you comes when you have those kind of experiences like with movement and things like that, and you feel stronger and you feel more confident. That really helps you walk into a room regardless of what you look like. Um,
Exactly. But my point is, I want to be able to walk into the room like with ease
right.
and grace and without pain and knowing that I can walk there safely and I'm not hunched over and I'm not, so the idea of how people are reacting to me and what they think of my physicality, I love the idea of being able to let a lot of that go. Like I know it's still part of who I am, but now I'm much more focused on the use of an ability of my body. I want to be
Sure.
able to go to Europe and walk around. I want to be able to go to the ocean and jump in the waves if I want to. Like there's all these go down a water slide safely at a water park. Like there are people that get to the point where they physically can't do these basic things. And I don't ever want to be in that position. So I have a plan to keep moving, keep doing my strength training, keep doing my martial arts, all the things that I know give me that ability.
I had a setback a year ago. Was it a year ago? Yeah. I was walking around the building because I feel like we sit a lot. So I used to take breaks and walk around every hour or so just for, 5, 6 minutes or whatever. And I fell and I hit my head and I broke my ankle. I have to tell you, it really took me back. Like these kind of setbacks can take you back, but it was a real kind of a slog and a process to get back into it. I don't walk around the building anymore, but there's other places to walk in front of the building, something like that. But it took me a while, and I was in some bad places, like I couldn't do what I did,
That
and
was, I know that was very, very difficult for you, but what I would want you to do is try to think back on that whole difficult experience and realize all the things that you harvested to get you through that. I mean,
yeah,
really, all that discipline, all the physicality and strength of your body allowed you to get back to where you are even after that difficult accident.
hmm
I feel like I
yeah,
would want you to try to frame it around, look how
I
resilient I
know.
was. I mean, you were gritty. There were some hard days
Yeah, I couldn't
and you
even
were
watch TV or read because I had that concussion, and
tough. Yeah, it was tough.
yeah,
But you gritted through it because of all the life experiences, physical and mental and otherwise, that got you through that. So I know that was really
thanks, Tim.
difficult, but I want you to reframe it that way. Like, look at what I was able to do because of everything that I had done in my life up through that time and how that served me.
Sure. Really appreciate that because I felt like it was terrible. And then because my ankle was broken, I was walking weird. So I hurt another part of my body. So I did go to physical therapy for the other part of the body, and that we worked through that. But
It was
it was,
terrible. I understand it was terrible. And listen, everybody, we're not saying nothing's ever going to happen to you and that you're all never going to have any setbacks or any problems like that. So, Mary, you're a great example, but you overcame it, got back to where you wanted to be. You're still now moving through the world with grace and useful, and ease.
oh,
And
thank you,
I
Tim.
do think that's very important. And that's one of those things for me. It's like, okay, I have to reframe all this in what do I want my body to be able to do? What do I want to be able to do? And then I'm going to keep the discipline and in the modality to make sure that I can do that. But I do love that I worry less about what anybody thinks about how I look.
Hmm. I always think you look great, Tim.
Well, thank you. And I have days where I'm like, oh man, I feel small and terrible. But my point is, that's one of the things I'm working on. And one of the things I think I'm making progress on is worrying less about what people think about what I
Sure.
look. And I think our culture makes us obsessed with what we think people think about what we look.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. But I do think, like, I know that men have it tough. This was kind of brought up, but I do think women have it tougher, Tim. It's not us versus them or anything like that. But really, when you look at the male actors at our age, what's that guy's Sam, whatever, everybody loves him with the mustache. And like,
Shepherd.
yeah, he's old, Tim, and
And
he's
he's
allowed to look
adorable.
that old.
Right. Oh, I get it. Oh, no, I think it's a huge setup for women. I totally get that. I totally get that. But my point is, we still have to go move through this world. We're in this world, Mary, right? And so we have to sort of, I'm saying, take ownership of this, people. Take the agency to say, well, I'm not going to let it get to me.
Right.
First off, I'm not a movie star where people are going to be judging me every time I'm out on a red carpet. Like I'm just walking around in the world and I'm going to
Publix.
make sure I can do that with ease and grace and a body
Mhm.
that serves me well. And
Sure.
then I'm going to try to present myself well and stay in shape and feel good about how I look,
Dress
but
nicely.
I'm not going to worry so much about letting other people's expectations of me. And I think that's one of the gifts of getting older. Is you can sometimes you can just let that, oh, who cares what the stupid college kid in the gym thinks? I don't care
Right.
anymore.
Right.
I just don't worry
Yeah.
about it. Who cares? I
I
know he
like it.
probably thinks I'm old and grumpy and have a giant goatee and what the hell, and I don't care.
Yeah, I
Really.
love it. I
You
think it's
know,
great. I just love this conversation for sure.
well, and we're wrapping it up here, everybody, but I feel like that it's a setup, knowing it's a setup, and realizing that you can decide how you're going to think about this and how you're going to relate to your body and how you're going to think about your physicality That's something that we get to decide. And that's one of the premises, I think, of the conversation.
Yeah, I love it. I do love, not to go back like minutes ago, but I love this conversation too of youth to use, Tim. I mean, that's really was eye-opening for me today.
Right, because our culture is obsessed with us trying to stay youthful. And there comes a
Yeah.
point when you're like, no, I don't care about being youthful. I care about being useful.
Yeah, love it.
That's really profound. And the other thing that to me that was so profound is the idea of what do you want to be able to do when you're 90? Like that
Mm.
to me, and like, okay, well, then start working on that now. You can't wait till you're 88 and decide, oh, but when I'm 90, like I said, I want to be able to walk around a theme park. I want to be able to go to Europe. I want to be able to have great sex. I want to be able to go places with friends and not worry about going up a flight of
Hmm.
stairs. I want to be able to eat a healthy meal and know that my body can handle it because I'm eating healthy most of the time. Like, so, I can have that big giant piece of cake. Like, you have to prepare yourself for this by the way you're living your life. And now's the time to make that decision and start planning it out. It's not as, I don't feel like it's a burden. I feel like it's sort of like an exciting challenge. Like I really want to work on this so that I can do those things the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah, and accept that as a process.
Right. Right. I'm not going to get it right today, but over the big arc, I'm going to keep going. And for today, every day's different, but for today, I'm going to do my best and I'm going to make sure I do something where I'm moving
Love it.
and trying to strengthen my body and make it better and more useful. And then I'm going to continue to do the processing of figuring out how am I going to use this phenomenal midlife time and harvest all those experiences and all the things I've learned and done
In your 4 act play.
in the four act play of my life, right? I'm in the
Right.
third act now, not the downward slog act. I'm in the third productive, useful act.
I think you might just be on the cusp of second to third.
I think so. I really do think so.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about. I have lots of ideas as I've been thinking about a lot of midlife stuff the last year, which led me to want to have these conversations. I have thought a lot of ideas have come to me. I feel like the universe is wonderful like that. As you really start to think about it, what you think about, you become, right? So I've really started to get ideas coming to me of things to do that I'd never thought of before. And I'm like, oh, that would be cool to make a contribution in that way. And that would be really fun. And I've never done that before or never thought about doing it that way. And this is
You're
exciting.
so good with that thinking, though, Tim. You're really good with getting up. I'm not sharing like old stories, but we would have all these. We would go to this marching band and have all these like problems and all these things we had to fix. And then you would wake up the next morning fully refreshed, out of the shower. We're meeting at breakfast, and you say, "I got a plan,"
Yes. And
and
I
I'd be
love
like,
that. I love that. And I do
"How did you
think that,
sleep through that?"
well, I get a lot of great ideas in the shower. So I take a lot of showers. Um, but I do think that's true. And that's fun to me. That is like the thrill of being alive and being creative and being out there in the world and making things happen is like problem solving and figuring things out. And I always loved it in those situations, Mary, where we had a show problem and you and I would have really great productive conversations. And then I would feel like I had a good solution. That I like that. It makes me feel smart. It makes me feel useful.
And you are smart.
Well, some days more than others.
It's a process, Tim.
I'm not doing the New York Times crossword puzzle every day, everybody. I'm not that smart.
Sometimes I cheat. Not cheat, but I need a little scaffold, I'm calling it.
It's okay. If you're doing it, my hat's off to you. I think it's incredible. That's really good. All right, this has been fun. Next week, we're talking about the emotional life. So if you're watching this, I hope you will
Is
join
it
us. You can
next
join
week
us
or
live or
in
just
two
keep watching
weeks?
the recordings. What'd you say?
Is it next week or is it the week after?
Oh, yeah, 2 weeks from now. Sorry. The next time we're together, which is 2 weeks from now, we're going to be talking about the emotional life of midlife. And I'm looking forward to it. Mary, you were wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.